6, 7 years ago, like I literally tried to take my life, and now I'm living like the happiest, most authentic, like dream life that I could ever imagine. And I'm a version of myself that I never imagined I would be.
What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. Excuse my voice. I'm battling either the Rona, the flu, God knows what, but I am on the mend. Today, I'm super excited because I got DJ, producer, and fellow podcaster Fredy Lane on the horn. Now, Fredy's an artist who's been super open about her mental health journey on social media, and this conversation digs into her backstory to a point in time in her life where she truly thought she had it all. She was making great money, she's driving a luxury car, she had a great apartment, yet she was more depressed than ever. So if you're someone who struggles with your mental health or depression, this is a great episode for you. So take a listen and share with someone who could also benefit from hearing this.
I'm super excited to talk to you because the last time I saw you was actually in real life at EDC. And it seems like, I didn't know at the time, but like we have so many similarities with manifestation, you know, an emphasis on protecting your mental health. So I'm so excited to talk to you.
Same. I've been like following you a lot on socials and really seeing a lot of the stuff that you put out. And yeah, I definitely think we're very aligned.
I love that. I'm so glad that we've stayed connected since EDC. And so much has happened for you as an artist, but before I get ahead of myself, I know that you're based in LA. You know, I know some stuff about you, but I would love to get like that baseline journey. Tell me about your journey as a DJ and what's brought you to this point so far.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I'll kind of go back to the beginning. I literally have been a vocalist like since I could walk. Like I was probably singing before I even could. And I just grew up in like multiple choirs and musical theater. Like singing was my entire life for forever. And basically around the time that I was going off to college, I just had a lot of like exterior voices in my head being like, okay, like making it in the music industry is really hard. And at the time I was living on the East Coast, I wasn't living in LA. And I let that get to my head so much that I went to college for marketing and public relations to basically follow my uncle's footsteps in events. When I was 21, I got a job out here in LA and I started working full-time in events, my first big project being the Maxim events. So while I wasn't working in music specifically, I was working in the entertainment industry and was surrounded by music and working on music-related events constantly. But at that time, I really just started following a path that I felt was like a little bit easier and was a little bit more of like a sure, stead path to success. So I was working in events for a really long time. Like I said, I started when I was 21, around like 2017, 2018, or I guess 2016, 2017, I started getting that like that little void where I was like, okay, something's not right. Like I'm feeling called to like get back into music. Cause at this point it had been a few years since I was like consistently working on music all the time. So that's when I applied to Icon and ended up going to Icon. I graduated from Icon, and at that time I was working like 3 jobs to be able to put myself through Icon. I was working nonstop. I was working on music nonstop. And at that point, I didn't really know like what kind of music I wanted to make. So I think I got to a place where I was just feeling very burnt out. And when I finished Icon, I went back into events instead of pursuing music right off the bat. In 2019, I started my own agency with my uncle, and it was incredibly successful right off the bat. We did $4 million in revenue in our first year. And I think that was kind of the start of the end. I learned so much in such a short amount of time about being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, like when you start a business and then overnight you're making millions in revenue, I think you're kind of forced to learn how to do all aspects of a business as a small business owner. Like when we were starting that first year, like I didn't have any employees. Like it was literally just me and him. And I was doing a lot of the admin work while he was working on a lot of the production. So I think I got a really nice, like, eye opener to like what it was to own my own business. But at the same time, I think through COVID and after COVID, as events started coming back, I just realized that I was not happy and that I couldn't see myself doing events for the rest of my life. Like I literally sat there and was doing therapy one day at work and told my therapist, I was just like, I had a moment of clarity where I was like sitting at my desk and I was like, I used to live so much in like the future of like, oh, like when we make this amount of money, I'm going to be happy. Or like when we have this amount of employees or we're doing XYZ. Like I used to like always live in the future of like, this will make me happy. And I got to the point where I was making the kind of money I wanted to make. I had the employees. I had the big office in Beverly Hills. Like I had all of the things that I thought were going to like bring me that happiness. And sitting at my desk that day, I was just like, I can't do this. Like I have to leave. I have to quit. And I literally that day went to my uncle and told him like, we need to find a way for me to phase out of the company. Like I'm going to pursue music. And I had no idea what I was doing and like no plan. But at this point I had grown a business before and I knew what I was doing in that aspect. So I kind of just like started going down the line of like, okay, like what do I need? Like I need to figure out what kind of music I want to make. I wanted to figure out my brand. I wanted to figure out my marketing. And so luckily at that point I was making like a good amount of money and I had a good amount of savings and was able to really invest in my project in the right way. And I think that's why a lot of people kind of were like blindsided by my project because I did take the time in advance to like really prep and like invest into my project and into my brand and like have a lot of those ducks in a row before I even like launched it. Like I had visuals, I had like a brand style guide, like I had all of those things like lined up and like wanted those to be lined up by the time that I actually like launched my project. And I always find it funny when people like refer to me as a DJ because I literally did not learn to DJ until like I got booked for my first show. So like I don't even like look at myself as like a DJ, like because I just come from production and like creating music and songwriting and all of that first. But obviously it's like such a fun part of what I get to do as an artist. So I would say that's like a little bit of my background, but like music has just been my life for forever. And obviously it's not something that is like all over my socials or all over the internet because I took a really long time off and kind of had that moment of pursuing something else. But I am now a little over, like in May, it marks 2 years since I decided to leave and pursue music, and I like could not be happier. And I just feel very grateful that I like had that urge to like take that risk and believe in myself and go after it. So.
Okay, that's an incredible story. I didn't know any of that about you, and I'm so like there's so a tremendous amount of value in obviously having that event experience because now you know coming in as the artist what goes into producing an event. But I'm curious, what was it like going from, and I know you said you started with branding assets with all of these things in place, but it was still a new venture. What was it like scaling a business to 4 million in revenue to then saying, okay, I'm starting something brand new and I have to prove myself now? Basically, not from scratch, but technically from scratch. What was like, was there any sort of mental gymnastics you had to work through when you made that pivot and presented it to the world?
Yeah. So, I mean, whenever I was making that decision, it was about 6 months after I had ended like a really serious relationship that I had been in. And it was I had come out of like a really bad pit of depression. Depression is something that I've kind of dealt with for a large portion of my life. And I think, honestly, looking back on it now, I feel like so much of my depression was me not actually being authentic to who I am and to what I'm passionate about and like what makes me me. Like music is who I am and being creative is who I am. And so during that time, I was in therapy, literally like I was doing like 2 sessions a week, girl. Like I was like fully like on the journey of like figuring out like how to beat my depression and make myself like a happier, more authentic version of me. So this was about like 6 months in when I decided like, okay, I'm going to pursue music. And it was honestly one of the hardest days of my life because I had to look at my uncle, who was someone that has been my mentor for like the last 10 years of my life. And who has been my partner. Like we had been in through so many ups and downs. Like through COVID, we had 18 months where we didn't make $1. And like we had just gone through like hell and back together. And this is somebody that like is in my family who's expecting me to like carry on this legacy for my family and to like take over. I was training to be the CEO of our company. And like, I basically had to tell someone who was relying on me, like, I'm sorry, but like, I know we had all these plans, but I'm stepping away and choosing my happiness. And I have no idea if it's going to be successful. Like, we all know how difficult it is to make it in music. And while I had like some good connections, like I knew a couple people like that worked at Insomniac and stuff like that. Like I wasn't connected on a level where I would just like walk in and this would be a cakewalk, like by any means. But yeah, I mean, it was terrifying. It was the scariest thing I've ever done because I literally went from like making great money, like money that I thought would make me very happy and I'd be very comfortable and be able to sustain a like amazing lifestyle with. And then realized like that money did not make me happy and like those things didn't make me happy. So like, yeah, it was terrifying. I don't know what else to say other than like, I knew that I would always regret not doing it if I didn't try. And so I was just like, you know what? If I fucking fall on my face and fail, at least I know that I could do this all over again. Like I've seen what I've been able to accomplish and I know that I could come back and build another company and like do this again if I had to. But if I go the rest of my life not knowing what would have been if I believed in myself and like went after my true passion, like I couldn't imagine a life where I was continuing to live like in an inauthentic way.
Wow. That's a really incredible story. And one thing that like a theme that I'm seeing here that I've talked to so many other people about, I understand, you know, the economic situation of the world. And for a lot of people who are trying to make artistry their full-time gig, it's not possible to end the thing they're doing to pursue music full-time. But I do think there's something to be said for, you know, whether you have a little bit of savings or a lot of savings, if you can rough it for a few months and make pursuing music your full-time job, I think things will happen so much quicker than if you've got like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Because when you take that leap, you're signaling to your brain like, this is it, do or die. And so many people are afraid to take that leap. And especially like with all the success that you had in events, I mean, that is a big leap. Like you said, it's not easy to make it in this industry. But the rewards are just never ending when you take a leap like that.
Definitely. And it was like something that I also, while I was walking away from like a family member that was counting on me to kind of be like his retirement plan almost, I was also having to like mourn not only the person that I was, but like the last 10 years of building up this like not only version of me, but like this company and like, 10 years is a long time. You know what I mean? Like that was such a such an era of me that I had to mourn and had to walk away from. And there was definitely a period of time where like when I said like, okay, like I want to pursue music, that wasn't like the day that I left. Like obviously I was a majority owner in the company. Like there was obviously, I couldn't just like walk away right away. But I went down to part-time and was working like pretty much mostly on music for a while. And then basically last December was when I went full-time into music. And so since then I've been fully working on my project. It was even then was terrifying because it was like I got bought out of my company and was basically put in a position of like, okay, like I'm not making music, like money off of music yet. Like everything that I'm making is going back into my project. But I see like I've seen such a difference in like how quickly I can move when I'm putting everything into Fredy instead of, like you said, like having one foot in and one foot out. But like there was definitely a month or two of like me going inward and having to like really sit with the fact that I was walking away from my plan B for forever and like mourning that human that I was and mourning that life that I could have had in that like very stable job and like knowing that like the security of that was gone.
Yeah. And I think so many artists can relate to like that trope of disappointing their family in some way. I was just chatting with someone last week who is a personal chef, and his family wanted him to be a doctor. And they're like, why are you throwing your life away? And he was like, this kid loves to make his own butter. Okay. Like he lives and breathes being a chef, and he lives and breathes the artistry of it. And he was talking about how his parents don't really talk to him, even though he's seeing a lot of success as a chef. It just wasn't what they had imagined for him. And so in some ways, anyone who decides to pursue like a creative career still in our generation, you and I are pretty close to the same age, you know, there is that risk of disappointing your family in some way. And I know that plays into the mental health of an artist. It can impact their ability to be creative and do their work. And so that kind of segues into your podcast, Alone Together. Now, is like everything you've just told me, is that kind of what set the stage for, you know, you to have this platform to talk to other artists about these struggles?
So mental health has kind of always been something I've been extremely passionate about. Before starting my project during the pandemic, I was working very heavily on a mental health startup. I have just been really like an advocate for mental health for a very long time. But I don't think it was until I went on this journey of like really figuring out like who I am that I felt like I kind of like cracked the code with when it came to mental health. And I had spent so much of my life really like, I would hear people like talking about self-love and like talking about all these things. And I was like, yeah, like I feel like I'm doing the things that you're supposed to do to like love yourself or whatever, but I didn't ever feel it. And I would sit there in therapy and I would be like, God, like I make all this money. I'm attractive. I have like a great sense of humor. Like I have an awesome personality. Like I drive a Tesla. Like I have a nice place, you know, like I felt like I had like all these things that would like make me love myself. And I couldn't be more disconnected from myself and like couldn't have loved myself less in those times and in those moments. And I think realizing that without like a purpose and without feeling like I was really pursuing my purpose and pursuing my passions, like I was just very disconnected from myself. And it really took like me waking up every single day and being like, what would my perfect life look like if I was actually just living for me? Like you said, like we have so many external influences around us all the time. And I could easily like wake up and just do whatever makes my parents proud or my uncle proud or like whatever. And that's what I did for a really long time. I honestly lived my life doing what I thought others wanted me to do. And as soon as I started taking my life into my own hands and being like, okay, if no one was looking at me and no one was judging me and I could just like wake up every day and do exactly what I wanted to do, like what would that life look like? And like every single day I started taking steps like towards becoming that person. And I think like it's not that my parents or my family ever didn't support me. I think they were always like, whatever you want to do, like you can do. But it was more of like this pressure I put on myself of like, what I thought other people wanted to see me do, you know? So I think when they started seeing me actually pursue the things that I loved, and they saw like this fire kind of like relight inside of me, and like this lust for life relight, like I think that that was like a big switch, because I realized that like my relationships with the people in my family were like becoming so much healthier. And like the more that I was selfish and like took care of myself and cared more about like what I wanted to be and who I wanted to be into account, and like prioritize that, the more that like everything else in my life started to fall into place, and the relationships in my life started to feel healthier and more grounded and more balanced. And I think that at the end of the day, like I got to a place with my mental health that I never imagined being. And I just felt like like I said, cracked the code, and I wanted to be able to share that. And I also feel like I experienced so much of my life, like when I dealt with, I've talked about this on my podcast before, but I, maybe like about 6-7 years ago, I attempted suicide and tried to take my life. And I think that during that time, what I was dealing with my depression and my anxiety was something that was like so stigmatized and had such a like negative connotation about it. And like, if you talk to anyone about feeling suicidal, like immediately they're like, you're fucking crazy. And I think getting to a place where I am now, where I'm like, wow, like 6-7 years ago, like I literally tried to take my life, and now I'm living like the happiest, most authentic, like dream life that I could ever imagine. And I'm a version of myself that I never imagined I would be. And it's like, if I could, in that amount of time, change my life so drastically, like other people can too. And I think the big thing that like I felt was lacking in like the reasons why we're not taking as many steps towards destigmatizing mental health was the fact that there weren't enough conversations happening around it. And I think especially when it comes to the music industry, like our social media and stuff is like such a highlight reel. Like we will have shows that fucking are soul crushing, or we will like have weeks where like we're dealing with label issues or whatever, and like no one sees the other side of it, and no one sees like the shit that we actually go through. And I think that like I wanted to be able to like peel back the curtain a little bit and like show people that we're human too, and like let people know like even the biggest artists that like you look up to so much, like they struggle too. And I think that Alone Together just became this project of like, yeah, we might feel alone in those moments. Like I have never felt more alone than that day when I wanted to commit suicide. But when you really start to open up the conversation, you realize that like other people feel alone too. And like you're not in it alone. Like these are all universal things that we all feel in moments where we're either happy or sad or whatever. But like I wanted people to start to like really see that like even your most like influential idol like feels the same way that you do in certain moments.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I really think that this industry, or any entertainment industry, it's a facade. Like people are a lot more lonely than we think. You know, we talk about house music bringing people together as a community, and there's definitely that there, but it is, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And, you know, I've personally gone from like a super active participant to a more, you know, I'm careful about what events I go to, just, you know, because I have other responsibilities. I've taken a step back from like drinking, and I do it more mindfully. And I've become more of an observer. And you really just start to see patterns and trends of a lot of people pleasing in this industry, a lot of clout chasing. And I'm not saying that the people who do that, I'm not saying they're bad people. I just think this industry kind of breeds that behavior. Definitely. And there's cliques, and there's, you know, there's all these different things. And so it's really important to have those vulnerable conversations, because it breaks down barriers. I can say that, you know, just from having my show and people coming up to me, like, you know, in real life at shows and talking to me, it has helped me it has changed my opinions, like preconceived ideas I might have had of certain people because I didn't know who they were. And we all do that, right? Like we all prejudge people, whether we like it or not, or if we try not to. But having these conversations in this industry really just gives people deeper insights and like you said, to feel less alone.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that that's like a goal for all of us. It's like if we are trying to create community through music, like music might be the vehicle, but at the end of the day, like what we're really doing is creating community, and we're creating a space where people feel less alone through our music. So it was like, how could I in another way be working towards this goal of destigmatizing mental health in any way that I can? So I guess that's the shorter answer of why I went after it.
Yeah. I love that. And so let me ask, because, I've been on this journey as well, figuring out like my purpose, I know what my perfect day looks like. I'm still working on figuring out like my lifelong career goals. And I don't think that any one person needs to have it all figured out. I don't need to know what I want to do for the next 20 years, but I certainly, look at like quarters and, the next year, the next 3, 5. What would you say is like, what did you figure out your purpose was? Because there's a lot of different reasons why people might want to pursue a career as a producer, as a creative. And I'll just give you like a little hint. Like, I think that I've discovered my purpose, for better or for worse, is that I like achieving things. And at first I was like, is that good or is that bad? But I've decided that it's neutral, because achieving things makes me feel good. And when I achieve things, I'm helping other people. So what was your purpose that made you decide you want to do this full time? And what would you recommend for other artists if they're kind of struggling to figure out what theirs is?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, my purpose is to basically like live as authentically as possible and share my journey with other people. Because I think that when I really like open up about like my journey, and I've been to hell and back with not only my mental health, but just in my life in general. And I think being able to like authentically express myself, whether it's through music, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's through my fashion, whether it's through just conversations with other people on social media. I think that like I really, really desire to be somebody that can be a voice in the community and can really encourage other people just to like live their lives authentically. And if I'm giving advice like for other artists, like I would really, really get clear on like why you're here and why you're doing it, and like what's the purpose behind you wanting to make music. Like for me, I wanted to like explore all these different parts of myself through music, and that is still like a journey that's really unraveling for me. Like I'm still figuring out how to like use my voice in my music, and how to bring more songwriting into my music and still create tech house. And like, how do I bring more of that like pop style songwriting that like I come from into this genre that I love? And like, how do I make it something that's like, I always say there's like the music that I make that like you feel in your body. And then there's like the music that I want to make that's like more like reliant on like the lyrics and like tells a story. But like some of my music is like really just about like like partying and having fun, and like that's a part of myself that like I want to be able to share. And I think that was for me like the easiest for me to start with. It was like, okay, like let me share this part of me that's like fun and vibrant and like the life of the party, and like let me also show that you can be both, and like start incorporating other parts of myself and like maybe more painful parts of myself that are not as fun and glamorous or easy to write about. And I think I've started to kind of like trickle that into my music a little bit more, and have started writing about more real, like painful situations in my life and turning that into music. But it's like, as a journey as an artist, I think it's just really to share that authenticity. And like, I don't want anyone to ever come up to me and feel like they have to like put on a show for me or like hide any part of me. Like I want to be a safe space on the internet and just in life in general. Mm-hmm. So I think like allowing other people to be their authentic selves by seeing me be my authentic self is really the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. Leading by example. And I love your social media is so overwhelmingly positive and like being that life of the party person. I think it's so important. Like people forget that partying and dancing with your friends and listening to good music is a celebration of life. Like dancing as celebration has been around since caveman times. And so to be able to share that and to like be the one to curate that good time for others has to be an incredible feeling. Like I've never had any desire to be a DJ. I am just like a very, like I admire the, like you and everyone else. But I would say if I had to pick one amazing thing about being a DJ that like would draw me to ever, you know, pursue that career, which it won't. But if I did, it would be, hey, I get to curate great times for other people. I think that's like such an incredible aspect of your job.
Well, yeah. And that's like what I did before I even became a DJ. Like I created events and experiences for other people because that's always been something important to me, is to curate some kind of experience and like transport you into another place where like for one night you get to kind of escape your life a little bit, you know? And like, I think that what you were kind of mentioning about like being the life of the party, like I do definitely like emulate that a lot in my social media, but I also try to really be conscious of also showing the other sides of my life, because I'm not just somebody that's partying all the time. And I also am someone that like takes really good care of my body and really good care of my health. And I take time to myself and to my mental health and my mental well-being. And I encourage other people to do the same. I'm definitely not always the person that's at the party, like doing shots and on top of the bar. And like, that's me, but it's not always me. And I think finding that balance is super important. And I also have like talked a lot about the difference between like why I used to drink and why I drink now, where it's like I used to drink as like an escapism from my life, and I drink now in celebration of my life. And I think there's a big difference when you switch from like being somebody that drinks to escape and drink and being somebody that like drinks to celebrate. So I always like really like to preface that, like that I have gotten to that point in my life where like I'm drinking for the right reasons. And so I don't feel ashamed of like being that party girl sometimes, because I'm doing it for the right reasons. And not to say that I always do, because I freaking like, I'm getting old and I'm getting to a point where like that hangover is lasting a week, and you know that we cannot be productive when that is the reality of it. But I love like being able to show like the balancing act between the two.
Yeah, I think women are doing such a good job at leading the charge of like showcasing that balancing act in the industry, at least anecdotally from, you know, what I've seen from my friends who are women and who are artists. It doesn't have to be black and white, all or nothing. Like as long as you're taking care of you, there's, you know, alcohol is just a substance. It's not inherently good or inherently bad. It's how you use it and interact with it that makes all the difference. And I love what you said. And I resonate with that so much, because it was the same for me, especially like during COVID times. I mean, I was just bored out of my fucking mind. And I think I was drinking like, I could like put back like 7 or 8 White Claws, right, in a day.
Yeah.
And I took a super long break from drinking alcohol. I took almost a year off. And when I came back, and not because I had a problem, just because I was like, I need to reevaluate this relationship and like figure out how to still have it in my life, but not have those super long hangovers, not do any, you know, things that I regret. And now when I do have a drink, I'm in the headspace of, hey, I'm having a drink today. I'm really going to enjoy it. It's going to be something that's worth it. And I'm going to have a great time. And I know, like, I'm prepping my mind going into it that this is like a celebration, a joyful experience. And then I'm more choosy about like, well, the next day I'm not going to have one because I enjoyed some the day before, or whatever it is. But it is possible. Like, we don't need to have this black and white thinking around party culture in general. Like, you can party and you can still be successful and you can still take care of your body and still go to Pilates and all of the things.
Definitely. I love that.
So tell me, before we wrap up, tell me where people can find you, your podcast, your socials, and everything that you have coming up over the next couple weeks.
Yeah. So you guys can find me on socials at I am Fredy Lane, and it's Fredy, only one D. Everyone always makes that mistake. That's basically my handle on all of socials. I post about Alone Together on my socials as well. I have Alone Together Twitter, but other than that, it's just I am Fredy Lane. And you can also listen to the show every 2 weeks on Insomniac Radio. We are Fridays at 11 a.m. I actually think they're playing it every week, but it's like a rerun. So there's new episodes like every 2 weeks. And then I put the full-length interviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then I just started putting the full mixes actually on SoundCloud, so you guys can go back and listen to those, because I know a lot of people are at work at 11 a.m. on Fridays. So for everyone that's missing the live streams on Insomniac Radio, you'll now be able to hear the full-length interviews and the full-length mixes online. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Right now I'm taking a little bit of a break on shows to focus on music, and I have a lot of exciting stuff on that end to announce soon, but right now everything's a little hush-hush. But
well, that's amazing. Congratulations on all of your success, and thank you for doing this. I learned so much about you in a short amount of time, and it's just incredible what you've been able to accomplish in just 30 years of your life. So thank you.
Thank you.
I know the artist journey is not easy. Getting your piece of the pie, making enough money from your music to cover your bills is not easy, but being in alignment with your purpose is so much more fulfilling than any material possession on this earth. So, to all the artists and creatives who listen to this show, you have all of my respect and admiration always. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next week.